so you know, in 2019, Cumberland County, and I don't know, you have to check your own county, Cumberland County lost $60 million for the Reentry Council program. So we had, yes, we had to get with Senator Kurt Deviere at the time he was a senator and have a criminal justice roundtable where we had to get DPS involved. Because see, DPS gives.
So the money got missing, you mean like lost, like it got missing, or just like?
Well, they don't know what happened. Let's say that. So hidden money again, right? So, but for 2 years, we were without a reentry council, which should never happen. That should never happen. When you have a whole DPS, you have parole, and then we have people paying restitution. And if we're paying restitution, and see, that's the hidden part, fine and fees. You know, when you get out of jail, you have to pay restitution. If you can't pay that, you go back in jail. So when we're talking about reintegrating people back in society, how can they do that if they don't even have a job to pay their restitution, because they're going to go back to jail, right? And then the families are separated, and this causes more havoc, because then the family has to make it through, and the struggle goes into homelessness, and then the struggle goes into poverty, and then the struggle goes into, how do I make money? Do I have to go rob somebody to go back into the system? How does this work? Right? So when we're talking about American Rescue Plan funds, we need to use that for transitional housing. We only have one halfway house, one transitional housing here for those that get out of jail, just so you know, here in Fayetteville, Cumberland County, with 426,000 residents. One.
Wow.
So, and then we have a mental health, transitional housing, but you can't stay there longer than 6 months, and it's only 24 beds. So let's talk about that, and let's not talk about the fact that we have the transitional housing that may occur where we had bed bugs 2 years ago and had to make a complaint with the health department, right? So when we're talking about reentry, how do we get families back together from separation? How do we keep them together? How do we keep families together when we have this society that's only making $7.25 per hour? How do you do that and pay restitution a month and not go back to jail? So we should be using at least $12 million towards transitional housing, mental health, substance abuse. And when I say transitional housing, we need to do it for transitional, for those who can get sustainable housing. Sustainable housing is the word. It's not just housing, ownership and attainability housing. So I don't use affordable housing, because that to me is really a discriminatory word that came through the Housing Act years ago. Affordable housing is not a word for us. We need to say ownership, sustainable housing, because we have people living in places and spaces that's not sustainable or attainable.
So I live in Wake Forest, right? And I've been noticing, I've also been hearing stories about putting up these like halfway houses and stuff in the area. I've been noticing that, but what I've heard was that you also have these private investors that are actually buying into these halfway homes. So that could be an opportunity for people, you know, if we figure out the system, or if we're aware of it. You know, in Fayetteville, if they only have like one in Fayetteville, is what you said, it should be something the government pays for, yes, right? Is it an opportunity at the same time? I guess we can look at it like that. What you think? Like to invest in one of those, like a couple? Well,
I think that, first of all, we should already have one. Okay. So like, where is the money for that? And not using ARP money, but where's the state funding money for transitional housing? Because every county gets a certain amount of money from the state to provide funds for transitional housing, right? So we shouldn't even be talking about that with our ARP money at all. Like, why are we even having a discussion to ask you what to use with our money to house it? And then the homeless community itself, you know, what's really going on with that portion of that money that you receive funds to outside of the American Rescue Plan funds? See, what we're talking about is the money that's there that has no discrepancy. So technically, you could use this money, this ARP money, we can give a check to everybody or something, because there's no discrepancy. There's no real discrepancy on the funds. But I'm gonna tell you, there is this. You have to have your plan, and you have to know how you're going to disperse these funds by December 31st, 2024. And if you don't disperse it by 2026, December 31st, it's forfeited. So we're talking about millions of dollars that's forfeited of federal money that could be used for people that's suffering. Because homelessness is everybody's issue. Homelessness affects everyone in every community. Because if anyone lives in poverty, that affects your home as well. Because they're going to want to need something. Yeah. And that's where it comes to violence. That's where it comes to criminal justice systems. That's when it comes to at-risk youth. That's when it comes to the fact that people are trying to survive. And humanity lives off of each other.
Absolutely.
There's people that may be mentally ill because they can't survive. They can't make money for their family. How do we prevent suicide? How do we prevent suicides and homicides in these homes?
So what would be the bad thing about like the mayor or somebody that has the ability or the authority to step in and fix these issues? Like, what's the problem? Like, why aren't these things being resolved? Like, that's why we need Kathy Griggs.
Well, this is so ironic you said that, because earlier you said investors, right? So let's look at the investing part. We have people that's in, well, first of all, we have corporations and individuals that actually invest in your prison. If you have a prison, we have a prison, right? Right. So when you said investors, do you not think that your officials are not a part of the investing process? You don't think they invested in that property? So guess what? You're not going to bite my hand that feeds me, right?
Right.
So if you're not paying your rent, I'm going to kick you out, because guess what? I invested in that property. Right. So we have those people in those rooms that have invested in these properties. And they're like, guess what? I need my money. You're not going to take from me, so you're going to have to get out. So you got to look at it as that, as this is my money. Capitalism can never be separated from racism. Angela Davis said that. But we must understand that right now, our government is monopolizing off of the people and capitalizing off of it. They're using the people to make this money, but they're capitalizing off of it with funds that you can't find or see. However, it's sitting there that can be used to help the people. But if they are investing in these things, they're not going to stop what they're doing. They're not going to stop that developers from building in that black community and pushing the black people out that can't pay rent. They're not going to stop the gentrification that's going on right now with Murchison Road Corridor. I mean, Murchison Road Corridor have predominantly black people, but they're going to build racquetball courts and they're going to put bike trails there, right there by Fayetteville Pact. So tell me, is that not gentrifying?
That is gentrifying, yeah.
So we're back to the redlining, gentrifying, and pushing the poor out and have-nots situation, because this is a have and have-nots. Who will live and who will die, unfortunately.
Not accepted.